Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Media Group.
Hey, folks, welcome. Hour number 2 here. Thank you so much for being with us. My name is Paul. You have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, where we are building a liberty machine. Welcome back to the program. A senator calling in from North Central Arkansas, Senator Scott Flippo is back with us. Scott, welcome, sir.
Paul, thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you all.
As always, sir. How was your 4th of July, by the way?
It was great. It was actually fairly uneventful. Didn't make it on the lake, but I did get some yard work done and got to clear out my flower beds and do a little bit of mulching. And so the signs that you're getting older is you look forward to holidays, not because you're going to be on the lake or the river, but because it's going to provide you with a day that you can get outside and work in your yard.
Yeah. Yeah, you're exactly right. That's exactly true. Signs that you're getting older. Well, Senator Scott Flippo, I loved having you on. We did a segment a couple weeks ago where we talked about some big picture conservative stuff, and I was wondering if we could kind of start by thinking about the big picture of this health care debate that's going on right now in Washington, D.C. You're following this, I'm sure, right?
You know, that's a great question, Paul. And you know, obviously, I think that the Republican Party is kind of at a crossroads here, or a stalemate, if you will. And it doesn't seem like there's any kind of headway in either direction on what they're going to do with as far as the repeal of Obamacare and I guess the replacement of Obamacare. And that's a point that I would like to touch on as far as the replacement. You know, it's proven to be very politically treacherous. And this is one of the reasons that I opposed the private option, the Obamacare Medicaid expansion here in Arkansas, was understanding that once you give people something, it's difficult to go back and to take it away. And that we ought to not have done it in the first place for a litany of reasons. And we've had it, you know, for just 3 years now, and the sky's falling and the heavens are collapsing if we do away with Medicaid expansion. And it's going to blow a hole in the budget, and it's going to do all these things. And, you know, I'm looking, you know, just this year, we had to scale back Medicaid expansion. And why? Well, now we're starting to pick up 5% of the cost. And that's going to increase to 10% of the cost, you know, in 2020. And that's going to be a big hit to Arkansas's budget. And we're going to have to make some tough decisions. Now, think about that's a big hit here at the state level. And imagine what that hit's going to be at the federal level. The idea that you can provide insurance for 20-something million new people that were previously uninsured and not have the cost, you know, not have that cost the rest of society anything is absurd. If Republicans are going to go out there and say that we're going to keep coverage for Medicaid expansion recipients, able-bodied working-aged adults between 18 and 64, and we're going to provide them with, you know, with free health care and free insurance, and in many cases there's a copay, but it's very nominal. You know, here in Arkansas it's about $13 for, you know, a $500-something policy. And we have to look at the costs associated with that. And I hear a lot of the liberal media saying that, you know, well, we're looking to kick grandma and grandpa out of the nursing home, and we're looking to do away with services for that 2-year-old with cerebral palsy. Absolutely not. I think that's who we need to be fighting for, and making sure that we are protecting, because we do have that responsibility to these people. But from my own perspective, and I think for a great deal of conservatives, is we have to sit there and make some difficult decisions, and we have to prioritize our needs. And the elderly, the children, they got to rank at the top of that list. And before we can even engage the conversation of, you know, expanding health care to all, why don't we look at what our current obligations were pre-Obamacare and make sure that we have those programs shored up. I don't know anybody that was thinking that Medicaid and Medicare were vastly overfunded and, you know, just humming along at a very efficient rate. You know, there's always a lot of waste, a lot of abuse, and different things that go in. And so why wouldn't we want to address those things before we tackled even more?
You're really making some great points. Again, we're talking with Senator Scott Flippo. You know, the point that you just made about the truly needy is certainly something that I think is overlooked. I mean, in Arkansas, you look at the developmentally disabled, the people who are on that waiting list who can't get care, and yet, like you said, $500 a month per person going to insurance companies. That's how much we're paying. It's a lot of money. And but then we look at the cost. I like what you just said. Basically, if everybody is going to get free health care, it's not really free because somebody's going to have to pay for it. So, from the Washington, D.C. standpoint, what they're debating, it seems like our costs are not going to get cheaper unless we stop giving away so much of it for nothing. And do you think that we're, adults enough to have that conversation? Because I don't really hear that from this debate in D.C. right now.
I don't either, Paul, and I like to think that we are adults enough to have that conversation. And I'll be honest with you, I don't really care where you would fall on the political spectrum.
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. We lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
I mean, I don't know. Is this where it gets dicey, or is this where it gets kind of fun to watch? I'm not sure. If it wasn't tons of money every month for the working Arkansas family, it probably be kind of fun, but it's not. This is real-world stuff we're dealing with here. Of course, I'm talking about the news out of Washington, D.C. about our health care. About Obamacare repeal for the time being, at least what they were working on, the bill being dead. That's kind of what I'm talking about today. I'm sure many of you. It all started last night when we heard that Senator Mike Lee, as well as another, was not going to be supporting, what do they call it, the Better Care Reconciliation Act. That's what they called this thing. Senator Mike Lee, he's a Republican. He's a constitutionalist. He'd make a great Supreme Court justice. He's from Utah. Issued the following statement Monday regarding the Better Care Reconciliation Act. Quote, after conferring with trusted experts regarding the latest version of the Consumer Freedom Amendment, which was Ted Cruz's amendment, I have decided I cannot support the current version of the Better Care Reconciliation Act. In addition to not repealing all of the Obamacare taxes, it doesn't go far enough in lowering premiums for middle-class families, nor does it create enough free space from the most costly Obamacare regulations. I'm going to come back to that statement in a moment because I'm going to try to bridge a gap that many of you would probably say shouldn't be bridged or is a little bit too much speculation, but it has to do with Governor Asa Hutchinson. I will tell you this, though. Mitch McConnell came out surprisingly, and he said after Mike Lee was done, Rand Paul was done, and then you've got the Rhino senators that had wanted nothing to do with this. Once the what they were working on was dead, Mitch McConnell comes up there and says, you know what we owe to the American people? Basically, we need to go ahead and have a repeal vote, a full repeal vote. Let's do the same bill that they voted on back in 2015. This morning on Hugh Hewitt's show, Tom Cotton, who I believe has a weekly segment, Senator Cotton, was talking about the developments, and he was excited. And he even said, I think that we will have the votes, because why wouldn't we? We have senators who voted for this thing in 2015. Why wouldn't they vote for the full repeal? And essentially there would be a 2-year wind-down process, and that wind-down process, would give them time to try to, they could replace it with something there. Now, first of all, let's set the record straight here for a second. people ran on repealing Obamacare. And people got elected on repealing Obamacare. And after they get elected on repealing Obamacare, the moderate rhinos started to add replace. Repeal and replace. The moderate rhinos, what they started to do, and there was others, conservatives, that tried to adopt this language because they thought that they could win in a game where the media and the Democrat Party stacked against them, and the entire, we've got elements of the healthcare system that are actually just dying. They want this to be socialized so that they can get cushy government jobs. We got a whole lot of people that are fighting against us right now. But repeal and replace, they tried to convince you that that's what the people said. That when the people originally were electing Republicans in droves to repeal Obamacare, they were like, they added that. They made it up. I know I heard them say repeal Obamacare, but I also thought I heard them say replace Obamacare. And so that's why we have that's why you have the whole verbiage that you have going on right now. And I just want to set the record straight on that. McConnell comes out and says, you know what, let's just vote on the same thing we voted on before. Tom Cotton this morning on the Hugh Hewitt show supported that, was all for it, right? And this is the status of that. We already have 3 Republicans who now oppose a repeal plan only and replacing it 2 years later. Susan Collins, GOP Senator Susan Collins, Shelley Moore Capito, and none other than Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, said that they'll oppose a repeal of the Affordable Care Act. So now they're saying that this is dead as well. This is dead too. And I will tell you, from a conservative standpoint, based on the soft repeal bill that we were getting anyway, and we had Governor Asa Hutchinson begging Tom Cotton and begging John Boozman for more federal dollars and begging them to do this. Oh, by the way, Asa is now publicly giving Tom Cotton and John Boozman credit for the part of the bill that includes a block grant for expanded Medicaid coverage. He is now, in a statement that came via email and on MSNBC, and I believe on CNN today, he is publicly giving Senator Tom Cotton and John Boozman credit for listening to his concerns and giving and that they're the reason why there was a block grant, not a traditional block grant just for traditional Medicaid that you would want, more flexibility. This is the truly needy. No, not that. But we want a block grant for our expanded population, which are able to work adults, 40% of whom don't work at all. If you work 30 hours a week, by the way, you wouldn't qualify for the program. I just want to get that out there. Able to work adults who have no dependents. They don't have kids. They should just be working. But they're not. Anyway, I did reach out to Senator Tom Cotton's office. First of all, to invite him on because we want to have him on. Love to talk to him. But specifically, I want to know if that's true. I really do. Was it Tom Cotton and John Boozman's idea, like Governor Asa Hutchinson is now saying, and you'll hear it here in a minute, but was it actually their idea to go ahead and include in the block grant covering the expanded population, which is a brand new welfare program that has ballooned out of control, that is unsustainable? And here's the thing. This is a key point about where we are in reality. Let's say that there is no repeal at all. Let's say that they just let it collapse. Mark my words, it will collapse. There is no amount of reform that the governor can claim he's going to do that's actually going to help this system going, because you cannot get around the fact that this entire structure, this entire umbrella, that all these goodies and all these welfare and all this stuff underneath it that was Obamacare, you can't get around the fact this was Barack Obama's signature domestic achievement. Barack Obama is a socialist or a Marxist, whatever you want to say. He believes health care is a right. And this system will continue to perpetuate dependency on government for their health care and will disincentivize work, even if you do have part-time work requirements. Again, if you work 30 hours a week, you won't qualify for the program. Anyway, so just so you're clear out there, listening audience, I want you to know something about your governor. after this whole thing failed, right? After Mike Lee came out, Rand Paul came out last week, a few other senators come out, and we know that the Obamacare light bill that they were working on, that was still unacceptable. I mean, in many cases, Governor Asa Hutchinson was to the left of Paul Ryan because he didn't like the House bill, and he was to the left of Mitch McConnell. Now, that is saying something. That is a big deal. It should not go without being pointed out and discussed and admitted. Well, it all fell apart. And it may actually be good in the long term for conservatives. It may be good for President Trump, by the way, because this would not have lowered premiums from what some people are saying. And I've said from the beginning, if you don't make health care more affordable with this, you really will lose elections, and that's their biggest fear. Governor Asa Hutchinson, back on June the 30th, after Donald Trump tweeted that if they can't get it right, if they can't do the, what is it called, the Better Healthcare Reconciliation Act, this Obamacare law, if they can't get that passed, then they should just go ahead and do a straight repeal, which is something Senator Rand Paul has been advocating for. And he tweeted that out. The media went hysterical. And then Governor Asa Hutchinson went on MSNBC and was asked whether or not he supported the idea that we're now talking about today. An idea that Mitch McConnell, a rhino, not a conservative, Mitch McConnell said, this is what we're going to do. Does Asa Hutchinson support that plan? Listen.
I want to ask you, if I can, quickly about what the president said this morning. He suggested today that Republicans should take an alternate route if they can't pass this bill. He said, repeal now, replace later. Would you advise that?
That doesn't sound like a good idea to me.
There you go.
We're going through a lot.
So that was back on 30th. I just want you to know that Asa Hutchinson was against the idea of just repealing this and keeping campaign promises back on June 30th. And now here we are, July 18th. And, Joe, what now? What are you pointing out on this video? This is back on June the 30th. You're dissecting this in what way?
I was looking at it, I was like, do you see that nice blue tie Asa Hutchinson was wearing? That nice blue tie?
I mean, that's a high-level analysis. That must mean something.
They're trying to tell us something.
You know, if that were true, man, there'd be a lot of conservatives out there who real conservatives that have been caught wearing blue ties. I mean, but that's good. You never know.
If I ran for public office and I had to be out doing interviews,
you'd
like
always
this,
wear red ties.
Red tie every time.
Red tie every time. Power tie. Yeah, that's right. Folks, the telephone number, if you were to call us or text us today, is 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. So back on, so Asa Hutchinson has been making the rounds. So yesterday, on July 17th, he went on MSNBC's MTP Daily to talk about Medicaid. And this is what it sounded like.
Arkansas Republican Governor Asa Hutchinson. Arkansas is a state that has expanded Medicaid. Governor, thank you very much for joining us. You weren't a big fan of the House version of this bill. How do you feel about the Senate's?
Hang on, stop,
there's
Joe.
consensus.
What color tie does he have on today or yesterday? What is that? Is it blue again? Or is it kind of an off?
It's kind of like a navy blue
Navy.
with like white dots on it.
Oh, you never know. Subliminal.
Okay.
What is he trying to say?
I was thinking about this.
What is he trying to say?
I was thinking about this a second ago. The tie that I would wear it would be red sometimes, but on other days it would just say "for the people."
Yeah. Or if I wore a blue tie, if you wear a blue tie, it just has to say like Republican down the middle. So it's like no mistake.
Blue tie, white shirt, red jacket.
There we go. And then, you become a college basketball coach after that. All right, keep going.
Since we have to change from the status quo, both in terms of Medicaid, but also in terms of access under Obamacare, the Senate's doing the right thing by pursuing this initiative and trying to get a consensus. At my suggestion and other governors, they have changed a number of portions of it in the revised bill that I think gives more flexibility. Well, specifically, they gave us a block grant Medicaid portion, which we asked for, and I applaud my United States senators for achieving that success.
All right, stop. There it is. He's publicly giving John Bozeman and Tom Cotton the credit for doing the Medicaid block grant for expanded coverage. Okay. So let's just analyze this on a couple of levels. Is Medicaid expansion a progressive idea or a conservative idea? It's a progressive idea. Okay. Is keeping Medicaid expansion at all costs a progressive idea? Conservative idea? Progressive idea. Is ending Medicaid expansion progressive idea? Conservative idea? No, that's a conservative idea because it's an entitlement for able-to-work adults who are not entitled to other people's money so that they can have free health care. It's just that simple. Okay. Are tax increases conservative ideas or progressive ideas? That's a progressive idea. Obamacare had a lot of tax increases. Are those tax increases that are still on the bill that Rand Paul and Mike Lee cite as saying this is the reason I can't, because you're not getting rid of them, is not getting rid of a tax increase when you're promising to repeal tax increases because they were promising to repeal Obamacare? Is that conservative or progressive? Well, no, not give. So this I want you to know something here, okay? And here's the bridge that you're going to be uncomfortable with, but this is the bridge I'm making here. This was a progressive bill. This was a progressive bill in an attempt to repeal Obamacare, but keep virtually everything. I mean, if we're keeping the Obamacare taxes, which is why Mike Lee came out, Rand Paul came out, and others came out, we can't support it because you're not repealing Obamacare. And I'm sure Donald Trump is actually quite pleased right now. And the reason is because they were going to tie this as an albatross around his neck because it was going to make things much, much worse because they're not actually going to allow the market to do the work that the market can do. Okay? This was not good. Now, I was in the trenches, and I'm just trying to point out to you that Asa Hutchinson wants as much money from the federal government as he can to continue welfare programs. I mean, that's the debate that we're having. But if you have essentially everything's intact, you know, the taxes, the most egregious parts, and you're basically going to find a way to keep Medicaid expansion to where you can claim that it's the government's responsibility to take care of able-to-work adults. Do you think that had anything to do with some of these senators pulling out? What I'm trying to tell you is, there's no question in my mind. It's all circumstantial evidence, I will admit, but there's no question in my mind that Governor Asa Hutchinson lobbying Washington, D.C., his lobbying efforts were to make the bill more progressive. And the more progressive the bill got, senators like Rand Paul had to bail. Senators like Mike Lee had to bail. Just feel like that is worth pointing out here. That you lose some conservatives because Asa Hutchinson is lobbying people to make it more progressive. And now he's publicly saying that the Medicaid block grant for the expanded population, which would be solidifying a welfare program in many respects. Now, I know there's going to be flexibility. That's what people are going to say, flexibility. But it really just comes down to just a ton of more money is what they were wanting to do. And I don't think they deserve that. I don't think they need the money. You don't need a block grant for expanded Medicaid because expanded Medicaid shouldn't be a thing. How about that? How about them apples? I want to hear what you think. I know you've been listening to all the national guys and all the national guys telling you what's going on with this today. I just wanted to focus on this from a state perspective. I've got more quotes from Asa Hutchinson throughout the rest of the show. He also would on Wolf Blitzer and CNN to talk about this as well. Back in just a moment. Arkansas small businesses are tired of taxes that are too high and regulations that work as obstacles to small business success. If you own a small business, it's time to take action. Now, I'm not talking about the local chambers of commerce. I'm talking about an organization that's actually run by small business owners and are fighting for small businesses right here in the state of Arkansas. They're called Conduit for Action, and they're on your side. Conduit for Action is here not to get something from the government, but to be left alone by the government. Think of them as your personal advocate for limited government at the Capitol in Little Rock. If you're tired of all the politicians talking with no results and ready for action, start outsourcing your government affair needs with Conduit for Action. Go now to conduitforaction.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforaction.org and stand up for small business in Arkansas.
Welcome to Common Sense and Liberty. I'm Donnie Copeland. Well, there's been a little bit of stirring going on in political circles of late, and that is a result of Conduit from Northwest Arkansas releasing their legislative scorecard. And basically, this is just an indication or a scoring of how your legislator voted in this past legislative session. Now, I don't know why some legislators act surprised. I don't know why some got upset. I mean, if you voted conservative, you got a good score. If you voted liberal, you got a terrible score. If you voted somewhere in the middle, you got a score somewhere in the middle. And so how to fix that next time is just vote like the Republican platform, and then vote like you told the people who elected you that you would vote, and you won't be surprised next time. This is Donnie Copeland for Common Sense and Liberty.
Do you need to advertise your business product or service, but not sure what the best choice is? Folks, allow me to introduce you to talk radio. You're listening to it right now. Talk radio is one of the most unique mediums in all of advertising because it actually works. It gets the information you want to the people you want to get it to. And by the way, those people are educated, well-informed decision makers of their household, and most of them have disposable income. If this is a target audience for your business, then you have to consider advertising on my show, The Paul Harrell Program. We have options for most any budget and can provide you with exciting opportunities to grow your business. We can put your message across the state, or we can help you locally. Call 870-275-9755 if you have any questions. That's 870-275-9755, or visit my website, paulharrell.com, and click on Advertise.
Broadcasting across Arkansas and holding politicians accountable for what they say and do. The Paul Harrell Program.
All right, welcome back to the program. Hey, I mentioned yesterday on the show that Josh Waters was going to be in town, and that unfortunately, he what did they say? He took ill. What does that even mean? He took ill. Am I using that right? He stole ill. And unfortunately, he took ill. That kind of makes it think that it sounds like if I'm using that properly, if you're taken to being ill or he took ill in the past tense, it sounds like he did it voluntarily. You know, he took, right? So it sounds like, but anyway, whatever. So yeah, he will not be stopping by the program. But I will tell you this: on Thursday, I'm excited. We're going to be talking on Thursday with Jonesboro City Councilman Mr. Bobby Long. We're going to be talking to him because we got city councils, and tonight the Jonesboro City Council considering a resolution to beg folks to support higher taxes, to call a special session to get the internet sales tax. I tell you what's weird about that. If the Jonesboro City Council actually goes through with this, they're going against the state representatives of this area that voted against increasing taxes on the people of this district. It's really weird how the representatives in the city. This happens a lot, though, because people don't pay as much of it. You've got... It's funny, where government is more concentrated, you tend to have more liberal-leaning folks that believe that the taxpayers should just continue to reward the government every time they ask for more money or need more money. It's strange. But there's a lot of great arguments to be made about why it's actually not going to help business. Back in a minute.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
At a certain point, I think that most citizens, be it of this state or of this country, what they'd like to hear from their elected officials is a degree of honesty and candor. And even if that means, giving you news that you would prefer not to hear, I'd rather people be direct and upfront and honest with me and tell me some hard truths instead of skirting around them and trying to sugarcoat them. And I think that's a big part of what's missing in government today at so many different levels is, you don't get elected by telling people, there's going to have to be some pain and sacrifice and some knocks on the chins that we're going to have to endure for the greater good. And it's all about, this is what I'm going to do for you. This is how I'm going to help you. This is how I'm going to benefit you. Well, somebody's got to pay for all of those things. And Republicans need to be very careful that we don't fall into this, liberal ideology. We can somehow go through and get government to provide all these services and do all of these things at no cost to the taxpayer, that we can actually increase spending and cut our revenues. And that's going to somehow be, be viable and stable. It's absurd financial policy. And I don't know anybody that makes that kind of financial decision-making in their personal life or in their business. And I just, for the life of me, I can't figure out why government thinks that they're somehow in a position to do exactly that. That's how you end up with $20 trillion deficit.
Let me ask you this, talking with Senator Scott Flippo, is it a little concerning or maybe disappointing that, we've had in Arkansas a lot of elections on this issue of Obamacare? You specifically, when you ran, Obamacare was a big issue in District 17. Nationally, I mean, it's what turned out the Tea Party and gave the Republicans the House, and then the disaster gave them the Senate, and then, it was a big part of the presidency as well, getting Donald Trump in there. And yet, the entire idea and concept of repeal really comes down to two senators, whichever two senators that it is that just says, hey, we're not going to support this. Is that, it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of a
concerning.
Shame,
and I'm trying to think the senators from Nebraska's name, Ben, I want to say Ben Nelson, and I might be mistaken there.
Sass. You're talking about Sass, right?
No. This was back when Obamacare was being was being debated
Ben Nelson.
during the Obama administration.
Yeah, Nelson. Yeah, you're right.
Ben Nelson. Okay, and he ended up not going through with this, but in order to secure, in efforts to secure his support, was basically the federal government was going to pay for 100% of the cost of Medicaid expansion in Nebraska. And they kind of go off, and that's how they pick you off, is they buy you off. And so you end up supporting things not because you fundamentally agree with it, but because, you might get the better end of the stick. And that benefits you personally or your constituents personally. And I get that. You represent your constituents. But what about everybody else? What about the other 49 states? Could we do that for all states? And that's kind of how politics work. And, as a conservative, I don't think that I can sit around and just think about what are all the ways that government can benefit just me personally. What are responsibilities that I have to make sure that I'm doing as much as I can to help myself, to take care of myself, to help the people in my community? I have a responsibility, to my community, to my colleagues at my business. And what is my responsibility within all of this? And when you get into healthcare, so if somebody would say that healthcare is an absolute right, well, at some point, would it not stand to reason that the conversation shouldn't pivot to, well, if the taxpayers are going to be paying for your health insurance, what responsibilities does the individual have as far as their lifestyle, their decision-making, and things they can be doing on their own to lower their cost of health care? What are preventative measures that they can be taking as far as diet and exercise and other things that can, have a reduction in their health care costs later on in life?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. Thank you so much for being with us. My name is Paul. I kind of got right into the news today. I forgot to tell you that you have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. I forgot all about this. Folks, the Republican Party of Arkansas, I want to tell you something, has something called every year a Reagan-Rockefeller dinner. And Fox News television host Judge Jeanine Pirro will be coming to Arkansas this Friday, July 28th. And I'm sure many of this audience, you know who Jeanine Pirro is, but this was part of her monologue from I saw this weekend.
Now, the Democrats in this country are so freaked out we elected a president who calls it the way he sees it and not the way the so-called mainstream media and political establishment on both sides of the aisle do, that they wake up hysterical every day yelling, the Russians are coming, the Russians are coming, there's collusion everywhere, America is under attack, our way of life is coming to an end, and Chicken Little in the sky are falling. I'm even convinced they see dead people, too.
All right, that's Judge Jeanine Pirro. She is coming to Arkansas. Joining us now to talk about this, we've got the chairman of the Republican Party of Arkansas on the line, Mr. Doyle Webb. Chairman, welcome back to the program, sir.
Hey, Paul, it's always a pleasure to be with you.
So, yeah, absolutely. So tell us about this, the Reagan-Rockefeller dinner. I know what's interesting is this time last year in 2016, Arkansas was making national headlines for this dinner because candidate, now President Donald Trump, stopped by. He was the keynote. Tell us about that.
Actually, it was 2015. I don't want to
it was.
you, but
wow,
it was.
Time
we
flies.
Got him just yes. But we had a large crowd for him. We even got a little criticism because we let him come to Arkansas. Aren't we glad we did?
Yeah.
And he's quite the individual, and we're so glad to have Judge Jeanine because she is an unabashed supporter of his. I had the good fortune of hearing her in person at a recent RNC meeting, and once she gets over being a little shy and introverted, she really lets you know what she thinks about things, okay?
Oh, yeah, that's
and of course,
exactly right.
I say that tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah.
But we are excited that she's coming. And I will tell you, she actually worked with Comey at one time in New York, and she knows him well. We are not permitting the press in at the dinner. We're going to have an availability beforehand because we feel like she'll be more open and honest if she doesn't have the press, reporting. But tickets are $150. We still have some tickets, and you get those by going to arkansasgop.org. You can buy them online. If you want to meet her in person, we have reception tickets for $250 a couple. You can get your picture made with her. And so for a $500 package, you can have dinner and have your picture made with her that night. It's going to be in Little Rock at the Marriott Hotel in downtown. The reception starts at 6 and the dinner starts at 7.
Wow.
So we are excited that she's coming to Arkansas.
Yeah, again, folks, it's the RPA, Republican Party of Arkansas, Reagan-Rockefeller dinner with Judge Jeanine Pirro. You see her on Fox News Friday, July 28th. That's from 6 to 9. So if people want to get tickets, do they need to call a number? Do they do it online?
They can do either one. They can call 501-372-7301. And we'll sell them tickets. We'll put their name on the list and sell them they don't have to have a physical ticket to get in, or they can go online at arkansasgop.org and purchase those tickets. If they want a table, we have tables for $2,500, okay,
wow,
which puts you up closer, okay, to where the action is. We're just glad she's coming. We had to make special arrangements because we have to get her back to New York Friday night for her show on Saturday night.
Wow.
So we're really excited, Paul. And, you talk about Trump in 2015. I want to tell you that Trump was here. Trump is president of the United States. In 2016, we had Tucker Carlson as our speaker at the Reagan-Rockefeller dinner. And look how we propelled him into the position that he's in.
Yeah.
He was also great last year. So we think we're on the cutting edge on a lot of
absolutely. I mean, look. There's based on that recent history. I mean, that's incredible. And the Donald Trump coming to. I mean, I went. It was down in Hot Springs. And sorry, I forgot. Time flies. I forget that the presidential campaign lasts so long. You know, I mean, it's a 2-year process.
Well, it never stops. It doesn't ever start, and it doesn't ever stop. It just keeps going on.
But
right.
You know, we're talking with Doyle Webb. He's the Republican Party of Arkansas chairman. I want to say this though, like having knowing that Donald came to Arkansas, it was when things were kind of in their infancy, and everybody came. They wanted to meet Donald. He is a huge star. He's got huge star power. But looking around the room, if I'm just being honest, I remember looking at some faces, and I might even lump myself in there as well, who were really glad he was there, but they didn't really think, right, that he had a chance at being in the White House. I mean, that's why it was the most incredible election in my lifetime, and yet he is. I mean, did you kind of get that vibe as well back in 2015?
Oh, clearly, I thought that he would run late in the race. I thought that he was running a very unusual campaign that probably would not propel him into the presidency. And all the things that he did were the right things, which I believe today he's doing the right things as he moves along. A lot of us look at it and say, gosh, that's not the way we would normally do things, but this is not normal time either. Yeah. Let me tell you something interesting about him. Normally when we had Sarah Palin in town for the Reagan-Rockefeller dinner in 2010, believe it or not, we had questions ready, and she answered questions. Well, I asked Donald Trump, I said, okay, do you want us to have prepared questions and you'll answer them? No. I said, do you want me to call on people in the audience and kind of protect you there and cut them off? Oh, no, I'll call on people. I'll handle the question and answer. We'll just let the questions come from the audience. And so it's very conceivable, and I don't know this for sure yet, that Judge Jeanine will do the very same thing. She's not shy at all. She's a very interesting individual.
Hey, let me ask you this. It also says here on the ArkansasGOP.org website, RNC General Counsel. That's the Republican National Committee. Tell us about that. Tell us how you got involved there.
I've been on the National Committee since I was elected chairman in 2008. And with our new chairman, Ronna Romney McDaniel, she can appoint a general counsel. That's one of the officers of the party. There's 5 officers, and she appointed me, asked me if I would serve as the general counsel and serve as state party chairman as well. And I was honored to do it. I'm the first Arkansan to ever serve as an officer of the Republican National Committee, which means I am responsible. I have a staff of attorneys, 4 attorneys at the RNC. I'm actually a member of every committee of the RNC. So it's quite an honor. Arkansas has some influence that it may not have had in prior years.
Yeah.
So it's not like I have to move to D.C. As someone said, are you going to have to move? I said, heck no, I'm not getting up there in the middle of that swamp. I don't mind going up a little bit. My web feet will take care of me, So, but it's a great honor to be the general counsel of the party. Again,
folks, we're talking with Mr. Doyle Webb, the Republican Party of Arkansas chairman, talking about the RPA Reagan-Rockefeller dinner this coming July 28th. That's a Friday from 6 to 9, the Marriott Hotel in Little Rock. Chairman Webb, I got a couple of what I would consider hard questions I just want to ask you. Are you up for that?
I am always up for a hard question. I may not give a hard answer, but I'm up.
Okay.
Whip it on me.
I think you can handle it. I think you can handle it. Okay, so here's the question. How do Republicans, you're the RPA chairman, so how do Republicans protect the image, their image, the reputation, especially if you look at the platform, from tax and spend big government leadership? And so feel free to respond to that however you will.
Sure. Well, I believe, and I'm asked that quite often. I tell people that primaries, if there's a candidate that is not acting in the way that you think they should act. A primary can state, what positions you want a candidate to have. If a candidate is not as conservative as you think, and there's another candidate in the race and they're more conservative, I would encourage you to participate in the primary and vote for that more conservative candidate. I think the primaries define the party. Okay, that's what I believe.
Yeah, I think that's a really good answer, folks. That's the importance of Republican Party primaries. And Chairman Webb, I'm glad to hear that you support them. To support the whole process.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's kind of where, within the Republican Party, we have an actual choice.
That's right. That's right. And let me say this: I kind of go, and Paul, you've probably heard me say this before. I go with the Ronald Reagan belief that my friends vote the way I want them to 80% of the time. I tell people there's no perfect Republican other than me. I believe that I'm a perfect Republican. I'm sure, Paul, that you believe that you're a perfect Republican. It's hard to find clones of me or clones of you, okay?
Right.
So you have to look, you have to really have some deep thought, be prayerful. What do you value in your 80%, okay? And if you get 85%, if you get 90%, if you get 100% of that individual, that's a blessing. Now, if you agree with that person 20% of the time, that's probably not your person you're going to vote for, okay? Or probably not your friend at all in the electoral process. So I go with the Reagan rule, 80% you're my friend, okay?
Yeah. Yeah, and I've certainly heard that before. Specifically with Arkansas, though, it's the Republican Party is more popular than it's ever been. I mean, people have been, knocking doors in the grassroots for decades trying to get to this point, and yet we're seeing, a lot of Democrats now switching. I mean, and a lot meaning just relatively, according, what normally that never should have happened. Historically in Arkansas, that's not what happened. So. My question, and I don't really know how to ask it because I know Democrats are switching to the Republican Party, but how do we keep Democrats out of the Republican Party? And you understand the gist of my question? How do we keep, if it's a popular party and it's the only way you can get elected, how do we keep what is a failed ideology out of the Republican Party?
Once again, I go back to that primary issue. Now, if it's a Democrat who switched parties so that they can get elected, a good primary will ferret that out, and you'll determine who is the more conservative, who is the more Republican, and the primary should take care of that, okay? As far as voting in the primary, we welcome everyone into the primary to vote. We had our largest turnout that we've ever had in the presidential primary, close to 2-1 over the Democrats. I will tell you, I think most people, overwhelmingly, most people who vote in a Republican primary are conservative. There is always the exception that someone's coming over and voting in the primary to create a little mischief, if you will, or to support the more liberal candidate. But I've never found that to be a large majority of people.
Right.
Okay? It takes a lot of courage. It still takes a lot of courage to go into a polling place and the poll worker says, what primary do you want to vote in? And it takes some courage to say, I'm going to vote in the Republican primary. And I believe if you have that courage, you're probably on your way. If you're not already a Republican, you're on your way to being a conservative Republican.
Yeah. So I would take that. Would you support? There were some people kind of threw out some ideas in the last session about making Arkansas a closed primary state. Did you ever have a position on that?
I do. I do not think this is the time to do that. I think that we may need to do that in the future. But I think at this point, Arkansas is still deciding that it's a Republican state, and I would like that to come to fruition. And if we close the primary, that's going to keep some people out that eventually would have become Republican. Once again, if I thought there was mischief, I would say let's close it. But, if it ain't broke, don't fix it at this point. Now, the other one that I'm adamantly opposed to is what you saw in Georgia, what we see in Louisiana, and what we see in California called a jungle primary.
Yeah.
And that's where everyone, Democrats and Republicans, all file and they're on the same ballot in the primary.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone gets over 50%, they are elected at that point.
Okay.
And that's what you saw in Georgia. You had so many Republicans running, they split up the vote, Georgia 6, and nearly elected a true liberal into that position.
Yeah.
So I'm adamantly opposed to a jungle primary. I think it's too soon to think about a closed primary.
Okay, last question. Okay, what about?
Okay, am I doing all right?
You're
so
doing
far?
great. Yeah, and I really appreciate your time. Okay, you're doing great.
Sure.
All right, so here's the last question, and it's going to get a little bit more specific. So about those Democrats that are switching to Republicans. You have any comment on the Democrats that switch to Republicans after elections and then immediately are given committee chairmanships?
That concerns me. Okay.
Okay.
I think that people who earn it ought to serve it, and those that switch for the convenience of becoming a chairman, that concerns me greatly.
Okay. All right.
I think that I think a Republican majority should have Republican chairman. Okay, that's the way it is in Congress. Each committee should be a majority of Republicans. Same thing with the chairman and the co-chairman. I think people voted for a conservative government, and they should have a conservative government.
Yes. Mr. Doyle Webb, the Republican Party of Arkansas chairman, we appreciate it. Again, folks, it's the RPA Reagan-Rockefeller dinner with Judge Jeanine Pirro. You see her every weekend on Fox News. It's Friday, July 28th from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock at the Marriott in Little Rock. And for tickets, if you want to call for tickets, it's 501-372-7301. That's 501-372-7301. And Doyle, they can also get them online, correct? Where is that again?
Go to arkansasgop.org, and that'll come up, and you can buy tickets online, use your credit card.
Perfect.
Okay?
Doyle, I appreciate your time, sir.
I appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Take care.
Yes, sir. Folks, we're going to go to break. The Liberty Machine is going to roll on, but we're coming back in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. Whether you're looking for a small desktop copier and printer, thinking about adding color to your documents, or considering a document management solution, Total Document Solutions is there to help. In business for decades, Total Document Solutions is an independently owned company that specializes in the ability to provide a high level of service in Northwest Arkansas, the Arkansas River Valley, Southwest Missouri, and Southeast Kansas as an exclusive Platinum Authorized Sales Agent for the Xerox Corporation. At Total Document Solutions, they offer customers technology services to improve business results. Their dedicated sales team has the unmatched industry knowledge, professionalism, and expertise needed to address the unique challenges of your business. Total Document Solutions is independent, local, and well-connected to serve your office products and document needs. Call them today at 479-575-0770. That's 479-575-0770 for your Total Document Solutions. Who's next to Zipline?
Me, and I'm really excited about this.
Sir, I'm sorry. The Zipline has a 350-pound weight limit, and frankly, I do not think it would be safe for you.
Oh, that's okay. I self-identify as 180 pounds, so it's cool.
Sir, that doesn't make any sense to me, and I'm afraid we can't let you ride the Zipline. You're too heavy. I'm sorry.
I can't believe this. I thought we had evolved as a society. I thought this was America, but I guess this is just my plight. First slavery, and now fat shaming.
Sir, again, I'm really sorry.
You listen to me. If you don't let me ride, not only will I sue this company for discrimination, I will sue you for damages because right now my feelings are so hurt and I feel embarrassed because I'm holding up the line.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Watch it, mister.
Look, okay, I'm sorry. I just don't think it would be safe for you.
You don't understand. I self-identify as skinny. So you have to let me ride the zip line. The Constitution says so. I get to define my own reality.
Oh, you know what? Okay, fine. Whatever. Ride the zip line. Mike, let this man ride the zip line.
Thank you. Now watch as my self-identity trumps your bigotry. See you on the other side, racist. Here I go! Doctor, thank goodness. What's the prognosis?
Sir, we've done everything we can, and you only have seconds to live.
No, you cannot say that. I do not self-identify as a dead person.
PHP Parody.
All right, welcome back. Thanks so much for being with us, folks. The phone number, 870-275-9799. Coming up at the top of the hour, we're going to be talking about another event that's coming up, the Arkansas Tea Party Alliance, coming up in September. And that event is still, we'll be talking with David Crow, but I'm sure we'll be talking more about this Obamacare stuff, more about probably more ASA care, things like that. Let's see. Randolph County, listener in Randolph County, somebody writes, ACE's true colors are out, proving us all correct. Progressivism hijacked the Republican Party. There are others, too. Fake Republicans, and they don't represent me, a constitutional conservative. We are ready to vote again. You know, Chairman Doyle Webb is exactly right about primaries. He's exactly right about primaries. That's where we really do get to battle. That's where we really do get to make these important decisions that are really going to shape the new pieces of legislation, new policies, and things like that are going to get advocated for, or they're going to not get advocated for. And those are good policies or potentially bad policies, as we saw in the last legislative session. You know, do you know what Doyle said when we asked him the closed primary question? He said a lot of people are still kind of making up their minds whether or not they're Republicans or not, meaning there's still kind of an independent vote, you know, that used to vote Democrat constantly, but now they're voting for Republicans. Those people who voted for Republicans in national elections but voted for Democrats, that's over. We've detailed how that is now over as a thing that people are doing now, thankfully, because the Democrats in Arkansas enabled the Democrats in Washington, D.C. We've said that for a very long time. But I want you. It really sparked something to me when he said that people are still deciding. That means that the book is still out, the jury is still out, and there's an enormous opportunity that I believe has been wasted, showing people what it's like to give them more liberty, more freedom, less government. So far, the Republican leadership has been lax. It has not delivered on those things. When I asked Doyle that question just now, I said, how do we, how does the Republican Party protect its image from Republicans in the leadership who are tax and spend in big government? His answer is primaries, and I just, it would be a very daunting task to try to primary every person who is big government, but I really do feel like, because you got to find a good candidate, but I really feel like that should. What does that say? What does that say to the leadership? The leadership of the Republican Party. Doyle Webb just said that if you are uncomfortable with some of the votes that they're making, that you should primary them, and he encouraged it. And I think that's good. It's very, very good responses, I think, by Chairman Doyle Webb. All right, folks, we got one more hour of the Paul Harrell program coming your way next. We're going to listen to David Crow. He's going to interview with us, and then we're going to get back into some of this audio from Governor Asa Hutchinson on MSNBC, making the rounds on the liberal networks. He went on CNN today to talk about the health care bill not having the votes. We'll have much more on this when we come back. Don't go anywhere.
Rush, Glenn, Sean, and Paul. This is Jonesboro's 1013 FM News Talk, KBTM.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
I mean, if this is just an absolute right and entitlement, then you can just go off and smoke 2 packs a day and eat Big Macs and drink Mountain Dew and make all these horrible decisions. But, the taxpayers are going to pay for your health care.
Yeah, and that's where I get really worried because, if we buy into the everybody has a right to it, then eventually the financial bill does come due, and then they start trying to infringe on your rights. I mean, the Supreme Court, the precedent is still there. They can force you to buy health insurance, so why can't they force you to eat broccoli instead of bacon? That's where I'm worried we're going.
Absolutely, and that's the thing that one of the things that really frustrates me about government is the lack of long-term thinking and seeing that it's not just how it is today, but where's it going to be in 5, 10, 15, and 20 years down the road. And, a lot of times I think elected officials are just, sometimes they make decisions and think, well, I'm not going to be in office when the chickens come home to roost, so it won't be my problem. Mm-hmm. Well, it's all of our problem. And these are decisions that we make today are going to be affecting, future generations for the foreseeable future. So we have that responsibility that we need to not just be looking at the problems of today, but be looking at the problems of tomorrow and the potential that some of this additional spending and and increasing government, what cost is that going to come at? And a whole litany of things, Paul, that I could look at and think. And I was telling somebody the other day, we all know that, that smoking is bad and wearing your seatbelt is a good idea. And, in Arkansas now, they have a law, it's a primary seatbelt law, where, you can be pulled over and given a ticket, $150, $200 ticket for simply not wearing your seatbelt. And it's a good idea to wear your seatbelt. Does government exist to protect you from yourself? I don't think so. And today it's tobacco and seatbelts. Mm-hmm. Tomorrow it's going to be, donuts and life jackets.
Yeah.
It'll never end. There is no defensive line which you do not cross, and we're just going to leave it alone. And it's the same thing when I hear liberals talk about common sense gun control. Well, great. Who gets to define what common sense is? And can you assure me that, if we did something that we're never going to come back and touch it again? Mm-hmm. No. What government's going to do is they're going to take what they can get today and then circle back tomorrow and take another crack at it.
Take the rest.
And keep chipping away at our freedoms and our liberty. And they're going to do it under the pretext of making our lives easier.
Yeah, that's exactly
and that
right.
Scares me exponentially.
And do we say, yeah, I want an easy life? Do we buy into the lie? Last question, Senator Scott Flippo. So I love what you said about, look where this is going to be 10, 20 years down the road. In Arkansas, kind of bringing this back down to the local level.
Sure.
Several years ago, there were Arkansas politicians, who are in the leadership now that were willing to talk about the path that we are on, which is socialized medicine. Unfortunately,
absolutely,
you look at what's happening with Charlie Gard over there in Great Britain and that family that's being told that their kid cannot get the experimental treatment. They just want to let the kid die. And it's like that's what we used to in Arkansas. We used to talk about that. And then I don't know, maybe they paid us to shut up about it. I mean, that's kind of what it looks like generally.
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. We lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
It's hour number 2. Welcome to the program. Thank you so much for being with us. The phone number to call or text, 870-275-9799. My name is Paul. Congratulations, you've found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. You've been looking for it for a while, specifically when it comes to Arkansas politics. If you're just listening for the first time, I just want you to know you have found it. Just keep listening. You're going to get information here that you do not get anywhere else. We're building a Liberty machine. If you want to help us, again, that number, 870-275-9799. For his weekly segment, we now have back with us Mr. David Crow. David is from the Arkansas Tea Party Alliance. He's also the chairman of the Faulkner County Tea Party. Calling in. Are you calling in from Faulkner County, David?
We are. I'm calling from the old master bedroom here.
All right.
From Faulkner County, yeah.
Live.
Sitting on a brand new couch. Hey, man, how is that baby? How's that new baby?
Oh, wow. She's amazing. She's obviously...
Absolutely.
You know, all this is, it's cliche, but it's also true. Life-changing, amazing, a miracle. Me and the missus are still trying to figure out kind of what a new baseline for normal is. You know what I mean? Moving forward. But
I so know this. Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yes,
and so
do.
we're figuring that out. We'll be parents for 2 weeks tomorrow at around 11 o'clock.
Wonderful. Well, I hope you guys are getting some sleep. I remember the first. Yes.
Well, I mean, I'm getting some sleep. I mean, I'm up with her sometimes. We're doing this 3-hour thing. Trying to keep her on a pretty tight schedule. But all the sleep that I do get, because I don't have the anatomy that's useful for feeding. All of the sleep that I am getting is actually pretty guilty. I'm like, people are like, how are you sleeping? Well, I mean, I've lost some sleep, but not near as much as she has. So I feel pretty guilty about the whole thing.
Oh, that's okay.
All right.
That's right. You don't have the parts you need for taking care of that every 3 hours.
Yeah, that's right. So and we don't believe in transitions, and I don't self-identify. Like I feel like I should have the equipment. I'm really sorry. Okay, so David Crow is with us. It's the Arkansas Tea Party Alliance Convention. We want to remind you guys of this. It's the 3rd annual convention. It's September the 16th from 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock. It's a Saturday. It's in Little Rock. And we want you guys to go buy tickets online and plan to be at this event. You don't have to be a Tea Party member to go to it. You probably want to be a limited government conservative, though, right, David?
Absolutely. And so let me point out something. I made a mistake about 3 years ago when we had our first convention. We invited Asa Hutchinson, and he is not a conservative, and so he will not be at our event.
Wow.
And he still had our eyes, pulled over for that first round. But, man, I tell you what, this guy has gone to the other side. Mm-hmm. I understand he has an apartment with MSNBC and CNN, and he is a regular on their shows these days. That is really serious. Kindred spirits there.
Yeah, and there might be some people that would say that criticism of him is unfair, but I really don't think so, because if it may just show a naivete or a cluelessness from him, because these liberal outfits, they want Republicans to come on the air and criticize conservatives. That's their function. Mm-hmm. That's their function. Mm-hmm. And that's what Asa Hutchinson is serving when he's doing those things.
Yeah, he's propping them up for their agenda. And they're very quick to say Republican Asa Hutchinson from the southern state of Arkansas.
Yeah.
And it is really regretful that he has chosen to take this path. I do not understand this comment that he made about Bozeman and Cotton. Does anybody believe that those two guys would throw the citizens of Arkansas under the bus and push for this Medicaid block grant for expanded coverage? They will have to say that to me before I'll believe it.
Yeah, me too. That's kind of where I am. And he says in his statement he released via email, now it has been announced that the Senate bill does not have the votes. I look forward to discussing any future action with both Senator Bozeman and Senator Cotton. They have provided significant help in getting changes in the Senate bill that are more favorable to Arkansas, and am grateful for their support. I've reached out to Senator Cotton's office just to say, hey, because he went on MSNBC, we played it last hour, and he took total credit, or he gave them credit for the block grant idea for expanded coverage, which is for able-to-work adults. So it's very strange. But here's the thing: when Tom Cotton, who has a very the highest, he's got the highest national profile of anybody right now from Arkansas, and when he goes on these shows, I don't feel embarrassed. I don't feel like he's being used by the liberals to,
not at all.
You know, because he'll go on NBC or MSNBC,
right.
and he advocates for, the platform, but but Asa doesn't. When Asa's going on this, he comes across as, to me, just not representing the average Arkansan at all.
No, not at all. And regretfully, he's all about maintaining and keeping in place Asa Care, and it just is regretful that we find ourselves in the situation that we do, with 330 additional people on Medicare coverage, expanded Medicare coverage, which now takes us over 1 million people in the state. 1/3 of our population is on expanded Medicaid, and it's just it is regretful that we find ourselves there. That's costing the citizens $2 billion a year, and he is just giddy about the fact that the Senate is not going to vote on the bill that they had proposed, and then he's even more giddy that probably they have chosen not to repeal Obamacare. But what I think that and I think McConnell is going to do an up and down vote on that next week. But I understand that the administration has said, Trump administration has said, is we're just going to let Obamacare crash. And my question is once that happens, what happens in the state of Arkansas to the 330,000 people that they have, our governor and our legislature has placed on expanded Medicaid? Medicaid.
I don't know. I know that Asa has certainly fought all of his recommendations. He's been to the left of Paul Ryan, which is saying something. He's been to the left of Mitch McConnell. He has fought to make this bill even more progressive than they wanted it. And I think, well, first of all, I want the people of Arkansas to know that. I want them to understand that. I'm sure the happiest person right now, just on face value, would be liberal columnist John Brummett. However, I actually think, and I could be wrong, but David, I think this might be a win for conservatism. I know they're going to try to do a straight repeal, and right now there's reports saying that they don't have the votes for that, even though they still need to get on record. They still need to have the vote, and then the American people are going to see that there's a lot of cleaning up to do in the Republican Party. And, it may be time. It may be time for a new Senate Majority Leader and a new Speaker, honestly.
I agree. I would love to see both of those turned over. But I also like what you said about just doing a straight-up vote on repeal, so we know who is for and who is against. And it just makes it perfectly clear for everybody, because it's amazing. Back in 2015, all of them voted for repeal, but and it didn't matter then, but they actually needed that for a re-election. But now this one will be taken, and we'll just let the chips fall where they may.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a sad state of affairs right now that we find ourselves in.
The repeal bill that they want to have a vote on is the same one from 2015. This morning on national radio, Senator Cotton said, of course I'm going to vote for it. Of course I'm going to vote for the straight repeal because I voted for it last time. And then he started to question, hey, anybody that why wouldn't you do this? Why wouldn't you go ahead and vote for something you voted last year? And national radio host Hugh Hewitt, he says, hey, if there's a Republican that voted for this in 2015 and doesn't vote for it now, they need to just resign because their career is over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Don't you know that I guess ACE's probably got Cotton and Bozeman on the phone now trying to get them to vote against it. So.
I mean, you would think so. I mean,
you would think, right.
Obviously that's what his opinion would be. He on June 30th, ASA came out against a straight repeal without a replacement. So and we know why, because he supports what's going on. He was asked by Arkansas News and John Lyon in a story over the weekend. Do you wish Governor Mike Beebe hadn't have expanded Medicaid? And he said no. I mean, I don't know the exact quote, but he said no. I don't necessarily. I wouldn't say that. Quote, I wouldn't say that is his quote. So every day, every time these negotiations keep moving forward, Governor Hutchinson really, if you'll read between the lines, he's getting further and further to the left, and he wanted this bill to be more progressive. And in a way, Governor Hutchinson's lobbying, you could say, it's a bridge people are going to be upset about that I'm making, but Governor Hutchinson lobbying this bill to become more progressive is why you lost conservatives like Mike Lee and Rand Paul, and you didn't actually get a vote on the bill. I thought people might think that's a stretch, but I think if you indirectly, that's certainly the case, because you got to think all these taxes that were kept in the bill that are the reason Rand Paul and Mike Lee can't support it are connected with all of these quote private end quote companies that are dependent on the federal government in the system that they've created, and they don't want it to go away. We're talking about Blue Cross Blue Shield based out of Chicago, Arkansas Blue Cross Blue Shield. There's really nothing local about that. And it's all interconnected. And this is the thing, David, we're on the path to socialized medicine, and this is why liberty doesn't matter. The third annual convention is so important. All of these healthcare executives, if the left gets what they want, and if the progressives who claim to be Republicans who just refuse to see what they're doing to this country, what they're doing to future generations, they can't see the forest because they're just staring at the trees, it will be the Blue Crosses, Blue Shields of the world that initially, to make everybody feel okay, are the ones that are given the bureaucratic authority to run all of this stuff. And then eventually they're the ones who will be the government administrators, where you will not be able to see where the government ends and Blue Cross Blue Shield, for example, begins. And that's what I wish some of these rhino Republicans would realize. You may think these guys are your friends. Oh, it's they lie to themselves and they say, oh, it's about the private market because we're using private insurance. No, these guys are waiting in the wings to get their government jobs, and they will then be ruling over us. That's really where I think we're headed.
Right on. I totally agree with you, Paul. And those of you that are out there questioning whether this was the right thing or the wrong thing to do, you can just look at England or over in Great Britain right now, and what has happened over there. We've got the court system determining whether or not an infant can live or die, and the parents have no say in it. And that's where this kind of bureaucracy with our Medicare, our Medicaid and the expansion and all, and this movement towards single payer, large government, expanding spending and just continuing to layer on regulation and taking away our freedoms and our liberties is a huge mistake. And people, we have got to step up and say enough is enough. We need to have our liberty and our freedom back, because if people like Asa Hutchinson and a number of these Republicans remain in office, we will be going down this path, and it will be the ruin of the United States of America.
Mr. David Crow with the Arkansas Tea Party Alliance, also the chairman of the Faulkner County Tea Party. Thanks for coming on, folks. It's Liberty Does It Matter, the third annual convention, Saturday, September 16th from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Do not miss it. Tickets are $30. It's a break-even deal. You'll be given a lunch, but you're going to hear some great conservative speakers. We'll talk to David again next week. We want you guys to go to this. If you want to buy tickets online, it's pinned at the top of the Paul Harrell Program Facebook page at facebook.com/Paul Talk Show. That's facebook.com/Paul Talk Show. David, sir, be safe. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate it so much.
All righty. Folks, got to go to break. Back in a moment. Arkansas small businesses are tired of taxes that are too high and regulations that work as obstacles to small business success. If you own a small business, it's time to take action. Now, I'm not talking about the local chambers of commerce. I'm talking about an organization that's actually run by small business owners and are fighting for small businesses right here in the state of Arkansas. They're called Conduit for Action, and they're on your side. Conduit for Action is here not to get something from the government, but to be left alone by the government. Think of them as your personal advocate for limited government at the Capitol in Little Rock. If you're tired of all the politicians talking with no results and ready for action, start outsourcing your government affair needs with Conduit for Action. Go now to conduitforaction.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforaction.org and stand up for small business in Arkansas. Whether you're looking for a small desktop copier and printer, thinking about adding color to your documents, or considering a document management solution, Total Document Solutions is there to help. In business for decades, Total Document Solutions is an independently owned company that specializes in the ability to provide a high level of service in Northwest Arkansas, the Arkansas River Valley, Southwest Missouri, and Southeast Kansas as an exclusive Platinum Authorized Sales Agent for the Xerox Corporation. At Total Document Solutions, they offer customers technology services to improve business results. Their dedicated sales team has the unmatched industry knowledge, professionalism, and expertise needed to address the unique challenges of your business. Total Document Solutions is independent, local, and well-connected to serve your office products and document needs. Call them today at 479-575-0770. That's 479-575-0770 for your Total Document Solutions.
If you would like information about advertising or supporting the Paul Harrell Program and Conduit Media Group, call 870-275-9755. Join the fight against big government and advance the preservation of liberty by calling 870-275-9755. The Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group. The Paul Harrell Program.
Again, here's more from Governor Asa Hutchinson from yesterday. I'm going to get to his comments he made on CNN with Wolf Blitzer today, this hour. But here's Governor Asa Hutchinson from yesterday. Take a listen to this.
We asked for increased subsidy for those low income that's on the exchange right now so that they would have improved access. That was granted to us. And then they've also given a more fair distribution between the states. So they've made dramatic changes in the revised bill. I quite frankly expect probably additional changes to be made before a final vote is taken.
What else would you need?
And we've pushed. Well, the big thing is a fair distribution between the federal government and the state in terms of savings. We acknowledge in Arkansas that we've got to increase the level of savings. We want to partner with the federal government to do this, to make sure that Medicaid is available for our most vulnerable and who it's designed for.
The only thing
also
I don't
to be used
understand, he keeps saying that we want to partner with the federal government for savings. He says that in the same breath where he's like, we want a fair partnership with the federal government. He doesn't think 70-30 is a fair partnership, which is what the match rate would fall to. But then he starts, but we want to find savings. You know, he wanted to find $800 million out of the traditional program in Arkansas so he could give it to able-to-work adults in a welfare program. For 40% of them don't have jobs, and they should. So I don't know what he means by savings. Savings. It's literally just like a, conservative buzzword. Well, we want to savings. Hey, here's a really, really tough question. Savings. That's my answer. Savings. Keep going, Joe. I want to get to the tough question he eventually gets asked.
To help bridge that gap as people move from Medicaid onto the workforce and have more assistance in getting affordable health care coverage. That's our objective. So you really have to work on that balance and struggle between the federal participation and what is being shifted to the states. We can save money. They're just asking too much at the present time, and that needs to be adjusted.
So you have 300,000 people in Arkansas that have health care from the Medicaid expansion. Are you confident that these block grants, these increased subsidies are going to help or ensure that those folks are still covered if this Senate bill passes?
Well, I'm convinced, first of all, that the administration wants to have coverage for those. The design is that they are able to shift to the subsidies on what is now the exchange, but it'll be a refundable tax credit. So the goal is that they're covered, it's just in a different means. Again, we're worried about the transition. We're worried about the flexibility given to the states, and you mentioned 300 and some thousand in Arkansas that's on the expanded Medicaid. That's too many. And so we want to be able to move more of those over to the exchange now. Hope to get a waiver for that.
Why is it too many? Why is it too many, Governor? I mean, if they're on the program, did we become a magnet for Medicaid? Yeah, we became a magnet. People move here to get this stuff. No other state around us has done this, except now recently Louisiana. But yeah, we become a magnet. You get free stuff. You attract people to do this. Only 215,000 were supposed to get it. Now 330,000. That graphic said 316, but whatever. It's vastly over what they said was going to happen here. But I'm going to assume, why do you want to move them over? Because you want to move them away because you don't have the money. That's why. Because you don't have the money. You don't have the right. You don't have enough money now to do this. You don't have enough money now to pay for 5%, let alone 10%, and that's why he's freaking out that there's no, because he knows it. Folks, this program is going to continue to grow. They may transfer 60,000 people. It'll shoot back up. Now, if they get the flexibility, I suppose they could make the reapplication process every year in German and make it 1,000 pages long. But I feel like that actually would be wrong, because then you have the government actually not, intentionally engaging in something that's complicated to shrink government. Instead of going to the people and saying, you are not entitled to taxpayer assistance if you're able to work adult and you don't get free health care in this country. And you actually do. You have the emergency room, so you can get treatment. You have things like disability that already exists. All these programs already exist. We're already paying taxes to do these things. We didn't need to pay more Obamacare taxes to do more. And by the way, hospitals, in your hospital math, $150 million a year in uncompensated care costs, or $240 million a year. Those were some of the numbers from original. Why should we spend $2 billion to save your industry $150 million? Answer me that question. Back in a minute.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Like, hey, we'll just give you this money. Shut up. Don't talk about the pitfalls of socialized medicine. That's really concerning to me, and I wish we could get back to a place where we do talk about the generally why socialized medicine is a terrible idea.
It's a horrible idea, and why is it that the government doesn't just exist just to make your life easier? That's not the purpose and the role of government. The government doesn't exist to protect you from yourself. It exists to make sure that, other people aren't infringing upon your rights or any roughshod over you. Not to make sure that, you're not making bad decisions, and not just to make sure that your life is as easy as it can possibly be. If you wanted an easy life, I guess it's the right thing to do, just to never be able to leave your parents' house, just live in the basement and, eat mom's cooking every night and let her do your laundry and let dad cut the yard on the weekend don't pay any utility bills, and it's going to make for an easy life. But is that the way that life was meant to be lived? No.
Yeah.
And again, the idea, especially that concerns me, Republicans, is that we have to do a much better job of getting out and messaging and talking to our constituents about, why is it that we're conservatives? Why are these the principles and the values that we believe in? And you know what? Sometimes, there might not be a personal benefit directly to you, but it's not about you. It's about all of us. It's about the future of this country, making sure that our children, and you are a new dad. You just had a little girl last week, and so you have a newfound appreciation for this, Paul, that making sure that freedoms and liberties are still there for future generations, that we still appreciate and have an appreciation and understanding of what it's like to live in a free country. And, if we continue to water that down as Republicans go along with that, we're not just doing ourselves a disservice or our party a disservice, we're doing constituents a disservice and future generations a disservice. And that's the thing that we need to be out there talking about and impressing upon the people. People are willing to sacrifice. What you have to do is they want to be led by example and not just by rhetoric. And that's got to start with people in elected office. And I think that when you open up the paper and you see about another legislator or congressman that's on the take and got caught with their hand in the cookie jars, it's a difficult pill to swallow to think, and who are you to tell me that I need to, do more with less? And, and I get that. And that's why it bothers me when I see people that, abuse their positions in elective office, because it makes all look bad. It makes us all look self-serving, and that's not the case. But the challenging part is that we're going to have to visit with our constituents about some things that are not going to be inherently fun conversations, but they're necessary conversations. And if we shirk from that responsibility, then shame on us.
Senator Scott Flippo, big picture conservatism. I always like to talk to you. We'll do it again soon, okay?
Look forward to it, Paul. Thank you very much.
Be safe. Folks, we're going to take a break. Always a great interview. Back in just a moment.
Watch Paul live at paulharrell.com. It's free and available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because the Liberty Machine never sleeps.
Accomplishment. And so we're looking at work requirements. We're looking at controlling those numbers better. So we acknowledge that it's not really sustainable for a long time.
Are you saying that those people that are on the Medicaid expansion right now aren't working?
No, we're saying that some of them aren't working.
Thank goodness.
We want to put a work requirement in. I think it's about 60% that are working, but some of it's not a matter of just working. It's about training. Do they have the job skills to get the job and move up the economic ladder? We want to be able to provide that training. So it's the assistance. We don't want to make Medicaid a permanent entitlement in terms of that expanded population. We want to make it a stepping stone to higher worker performance and higher pay.
So you're two senators in Arkansas.
It's just, in my opinion, it's just not a possibility. It's not a thing that's possible. It's and big government programs prove it over and over and over again. I mean, you just look at history, Governor, and that sounds great. We don't want it to be a permanent entitlement, folks. In 20 years, you will have a generational entitlement mentality on expanded population. Period. Going to happen. Mark it down. That is if they don't ever change the funding scale. The funding scale, which if they do, There's supposedly a trigger. Some people think the trigger's not a factor anymore, that Arkansas has to get out of it. I don't know. I don't want to go through that now, because now the bill is dead effectively. Senate Republicans' Plan B to gut Obamacare, this is from Politico, is poised for failure as 3 GOP senators said Tuesday they will vote against a procedural move to advance repeal on the health care law without a replacement, effectively dooming the Senate majority. The opposition from Senators Shelby Moore Capito, Lisa Murkowski, and Susan Collins came a day after Senate Republicans' bill to replace Obamacare collapsed and further imperiled President Donald Trump's vow to dismantle the health care law. But McConnell said Tuesday evening that he would hold a vote to proceed to the bill early next week, which would put senators on the record even if the vote's outcome was preordained. McConnell said the vote was at the request of the president and vice president and after consulting with our members. Maybe Donald Trump wants to know who he needs to primary for not getting on board with this effort. This is incredible. I would just say, so far, Donald Trump, and I don't think he was able to I think the big government establishment healthcare industrial complex wanted Donald Trump to go along with this and wanted it to fail, so that the Republicans would get the blame for health care being a disaster in this country, something that Democrats started. You know, I mean, hear me out. Hypothetically, if that would have happened, fast forward 50 years, and there'll be some college student that'll find some underground internet radio station with somebody, some talk radio guy, and he'll be hearing for the first time about Obamacare, because he will have been raised and read that health care was a disaster because Republicans passed something called Trump Care. Think I'm joking? That's exactly what will happen. What would have happened. And if they pass something that doesn't fix the problem, that's what's going to happen. And allowing more government in and the same amount of taxes, that's not going to fix this at all. Back to Governor Asa Hutchinson yesterday on MSNBC. Joe, go ahead. Yesterday.
I don't have a public stance on this bill yet. Do you believe that they should?
Back that up.
Well, I just appreciate
this was about Senator Cotton and Senator Bozeman. MSNBC asking, they don't have a public statement on the bill. Go ahead.
An expanded population, we want to make it a stepping stone to higher worker performance and higher pay.
So your 2 senators in Arkansas don't have a public stance on this bill yet. Do you believe that they should?
Well, I just appreciate the way they're working with us. They're the reason that we got these 3 adjustments in the bill that I mentioned. We want to continue working with them, hopefully pushing the leadership of the Senate to have a better cost split and share with the states. I expect change to be made. Let's see how it develops. But I appreciate how they worked with me as governor.
Are they going to vote yes?
Well, I don't know that they even know what the final product is. So I'll let them speak to that. And people want governors and others to take a final position on it. My job is to articulate the impact that it would have on Arkansas. Right now, it's a cost shift that is difficult for us. It needs to be adjusted from that. We'll continue to look at it and hopefully get more numbers. We want to look at the stability that is being advocated by the administration that gives us significant flexibility to the states, but we're not sure that it covers everything yet.
So if nothing changes from where it stands now, would you advise your senators to vote yes or no on this bill?
That's a call that they make. They're elected to make that vote.
What would you like them to make? Your personal opinion, for as the steward of the state of Arkansas, what do you want to see for your people with the bill as it stands right now?
I'm answering your question. As the bill stands right now, it's too great of a cost shift to the states. That needs to be adjusted. We'll work with them to create savings in terms of the federal government.
Governor, again with the savings. Again with the savings. What do you mean? Work with savings. They're trying to save money. They're cutting the reimbursement rate. They're cutting the match rate to save money. What is he talking about? He's to the left of Mitch McConnell. He's to the left of Paul Ryan. He's going on MSNBC, aiding their progressive narrative of, oh, here's a Republican. He gets lumped in with conservatives in articles over at Politico. Here's a Republican that'll criticize Republicans. Here's a Republican that is critical of Republican ideas in D.C. Does he not see what he is being used for? He went on CNN today. Wolf Blitzer. Go ahead, Joe. Asa Hutchinson earlier today on CNN.
Some of the sharpest opposition to the health care bill put forward by the Republicans came from governors both Republican and Democrat alike.
Some of the sharpest opposition came from governors, and this is the lead-in for Asa. Keep going.
And top health care officials and Vice President Mike Pence, they lobbied over at the National Governors Association meeting up in Rhode Island. The administration was trying to convince governors that changes in federal funding would not actually translate into cuts at the state level. I want to bring in one key governor, Arkansas Republican Asa Hutchinson, who's joining us right now. Governor, thanks so much for joining us.
Great to be with you, Wolf.
You expressed, Governor, deep concerns over the Senate Republican health care bill. Was your opposition based on possible cuts to Medicaid and how that would impact folks in Arkansas?
Well, it was based upon a shift of cost to the states. We can do reform. We can have cost-saving measures that will help the federal government, but what the last plan was too heavy of a shift of cost to the states that we could not absorb without having significant changes.
Stop for a second. Not only do they offer block grants, according to Asa, he's now giving Senator Cotton and Senator Bozeman credit for getting a block grant provision that would include expanded coverage, which is a welfare program for able-to-work adults, okay? Which, if you're able to work, there's something called incentives and being disincentivized to work, and that's but we have Arkansas Works. We have we have Arkansas Part-Time Works. It's the whole thing, folks. It's just so frustrating to me. I hate having to go. But you have the bully pulpit, and you can do your little moderate tap dance on a white picket fence. Keep going.
And so, I met with the vice president, our senators. They really accomplished some very substantive changes in the last version of the Senate bill that I asked for. They were moving in the right direction, but I was still concerned about the cost shift. And now we see the news that they're not going to be able to go forward. From a state perspective, we're accomplishing reform in our state. We're trying to control costs that helps the federal government and the state government. We're trying to assure access in an affordable way, but not create dependency. Those are the reform measures.
Literally. Let's outline every single goal on the left and the right. Well, we're trying to stop dependency. We don't want it to be dependency, but we're trying to save money. But we're also trying to ensure access to coverage and no drop-off to coverage. Do you see what he's doing here? He's parodying the talking points of everybody. Oh yeah, I agree with you. I think we should I think we should all throw our money into one big pot and divide it up equally. But yep, I agree with that. But I also believe people should be able to keep their money. So we want a system where we have a system where everybody is forced to throw all of their money into one big pot and then we divide it up equally. But at the same time, we have to balance that with people who, want the freedom to be entrepreneurs and keep their money. He says the craziest stuff. He just talks. Carefully crafted language doesn't even begin to describe this. Keep going.
That we'll continue with regardless of what happens in Washington, but from a national perspective and from a practical perspective, what we have nationally is not working, and I hope they can continue the change and the fight for changing the status quo.
You wanted it. You wanted the status quo to be more progressive.
You heard him directly from the vice president who was at that governor's meeting in Rhode Island, that funding changes wouldn't amount to actual cuts at the state level that could impact you as a governor of a state. But why didn't the governors, Democratic governors and Republican governors, buy that argument?
Well, actually, it merits a lot more study. Whenever you look at not just the Medicaid funding, but they created a stabilization fund that I think it was over $400 billion that was being placed into it. Those are funds that they make the point of that we could access to make sure that we're covering those that might not be able to sustain or they need more support on the health insurance
Asa Hutchinson,
market.
stop. Republican governor going on national TV, representing you guys, by the way, representing me, representing us as a state, talking favorably about the insurance bailout fund that was one of, conservatives' biggest critique, is that we don't need more government subsidies. We don't need more government control. Keep going, Joe.
Or in wraparound services. So that's something that needed more study, but the bottom line is it was still a very significant reduction in the growth of Medicaid, and let me emphasize it's the growth of Medicaid spending. They're reducing that. We will share that, but it was really too sharp, and it would result in the states having to pick up too much of that burden.
Here's what the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, said about the consequences of...
Asa Hutchinson wants you to listen to him in a vacuum where you ignore that you are a federal taxpayer. I don't know about you, but I pay state taxes and I pay federal taxes. And I don't want any of my money wasted on programs that disincentivize productive behavior. Keep going.
Leaving Obamacare in place. Listen to this.
Well, I'm worried that I'm worried that Obamacare will stand and the law will continue to collapse and people will get hurt in the process.
So what happens to health care, the insurance marketplace in your state, Arkansas, for example, if as it looks like will be the case, the Affordable Care Act stays in place?
Well, the problem with the Affordable Care Act staying in place from Arkansas perspective is that we're having to continually go to the federal government for the reforms that we need and get their permission. And while the Trump administration leans forward a great deal more, we're still not able to put into place the effective responsibility requirements, the cost-saving measures, and have the flexibility. Rules are changed in Washington under the law, and we have to live with those. So that system needs to change. In terms of the marketplace, it is working, it's functioning here because we have a unique solution. We have, instead of spending Medicaid dollars on Medicaid, we're actually spending those in the private marketplace, and that reform is giving more stability to that market. But you've got to look at it from a national perspective as well.
All right, stop. So he's still on board with this preposterous notion that was more expensive than just expanding Medicaid. I want you to know, if we would have just expanded it under Obamacare without taking the money and giving it to Blue Cross Blue Shield, that has been wildly more expensive. The report came out shortly after we passed the PO that in order for Obama's HHS to approve the private option, Government Accountability or the Office of Management and Budget, I can't remember which one, but it was a report out that said the HHS ignored their own budget neutrality rules when they agreed to the PO. Do you know why? Because Obama. Arkansas is going to do what? You mean Arkansas? Arkansas is going to implement my signature domestic achievement? Give them whatever they want. They want to give it to private companies, fine. It's one step closer to socialized medicine. That is my goal. That's what his goal was. Socialized medicine. Those stupid people in Arkansas are actually going to do this? I thought they were a conservative state. I guess not. Well, you know what? When you pay certain Republicans enough money, like what happened in Arkansas, they'll ignore their campaign promises. See, the Democrats actually believe in this stuff. No, I didn't call you guys stupid. That was my hypothetical conversation that President Obama probably had with somebody. Because, see, he knew this was about drugs. He knew this was about getting Arkansas addicted to welfare. And we are now, because our Republican governor is going on national TV, MSNBC, once last week, once this week, now CNN this week. I mean, he just making the rounds, criticizing an attempt, and a really embarrassing attempt, to repeal the bill. Joe, go to the first clip, back on June 30th. One more time. Let's hear this. Back it up. Let's get the question in. Not all the way, but back it up. Here is Asa Hutchinson on MSNBC back on June the 30th, in light of the fact that they're going to go ahead next week and try to just do a clean repeal vote on a bill they've already voted on. Back on June 30th, Asa Hutchinson was asked this.
It's good to be with you and participate in the discussion.
I want to ask you, if I can, quickly about what the president said this morning. He suggested today that Republicans should take an alternate route if they can't pass this bill. He said, repeal now, replace later. Would you advise that?
That doesn't sound like a good idea to me. We're going through a lot of uncertainty right now.
Just wanted you guys to hear that. That doesn't sound like a good idea to him. So even... once again, it sounds like a good idea to Mitch McConnell. He's having the vote. He's to the left of Mitch McConnell again. You're listening to the Paul Harrell program. Back in a minute.
Good morning. Good morning. Congratulations, you have made it to the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language, where we strive to offer politicians the very best in ambiguously specific language, the purpose of which is to allow our politician bosses to grow government and keep their constituents in the dark. This yields two beneficial outcomes. First, the government-growing politicians stay in office, and second, we at the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language get to remain in the shadows and get to keep our jobs. Now, it's time for technocrat training drills. Johnny?
Yes?
A politician wants to use the healthcare system to punish those who have and redistribute their wealth. What is the appropriate language to use in a situation to make an unpopular idea acceptable to the public?
I would emphasize that these ideas would make their healthcare more affordable and make sure the public understands if they already have adequate healthcare, nothing will change for them.
Very good, Johnny. Much progress since last time. Next up, let's have Susie. Susie, your politician has been caught in, dare I say it, a lie.
What kind of a lie?
It doesn't really matter, but in the spirit of the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language, I will give you a good hypothetical scenario. Dozens of politicians have been thrown out of office for supporting a socialist healthcare program. So the remaining politicians get together and they pass a bill to, quote, end the program, end quote. But they really want to keep it. What should they do, Susie?
May I ask a question for more information?
Certainly.
Has the word lie been used by the political opposition?
Yes.
I know. They should change the name of the program. Maybe use the word works to make the sheeple think it's for working folk. Then they should go on the attack and get the public distracted. I would advise the politician to publicly question why our political dialogue has become so uncivilized and tell them to claim using the word lie, no matter how accurate, is a personal attack on his or her character. And if they admit to any wrongdoing at all, they must replace the word lie with words like misspoke, misstatement, misrepresent, or mislead.
Amazing! Excellent work, Susie. I feel like the student has really become the teacher. You will make a terrific addition to the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language.
All hands on deck. This is a Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language emergency. Several politicians are scrambling after being exposed by some talk radio host. Let's move it, people. They need our help.
The Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language. You vote 'em in, and we keep 'em in. PHP Parody.
Couple of observations. Eric Bolling of Fox News with a very interesting tweet. Senator Capito, she has said she's not going to go along with this repeal-only effort. Eric Bowling tweeting that President Trump won West Virginia by 40 points. How can their Senator Capito vote against repealing Obamacare? It's a very interesting point. You'll see. You know what? Pressure goes both ways. Now it's time to put the pressure on these guys to vote the way they said they would vote at the national level. And I hope there are grassroots efforts all over the country to get these senators to do what's right. I mean, can you imagine how much leverage conservatives will have if they do a straight repeal that ends in 2 years? You know how much leverage we have at that point at the negotiating table? Significantly more than we have now. We'll just put it that way. Hang on one second. Did you hear? This is a report that we have not covered today. Lockheed Martin. Have you heard about Lockheed Martin? Okay. This was yesterday's news. Lockheed Martin has now gotten a $471 million contract from the U.S. Army for a Lot 12 production of guided multiple launch rocket system rockets. According to a press release, this is from talkbusiness.net, the contract calls for the production of GMLRS alternative warhead rockets, GMLRS unitary rockets, reduced range practice rockets, and integrated logistics support for the U.S. Army and foreign military sales. Work will be performed at the Lockheed Martin facilities in Camden and Dallas. All production deliveries are anticipated to be completed by the summer of 2019. This is good news for Camden. Good news for Arkansas. Camden, Arkansas, right? It's also good news for people like me that say, you see, Lockheed Martin can get a government contract without being subsidized by the Arkansas taxpayer. Flashback to the special sessions we had last year, where the governor had a special session to authorize Amendment 82 bonds in order to give Lockheed Martin all of this taxpayer money so that they'll come here when they get the government contract. Lo and behold, Lockheed Martin didn't get the government contract for some lightweight utility vehicle. They didn't get it. And so the special session was a complete waste because they didn't get the contract. It went somewhere else. We didn't have a special session. It's just of note that we didn't have a special session for Lockheed Martin for this for the production of unitary rockets, reduced range rockets, all these. We didn't have that. And yet, they got a contract, and it's good for Camden. It's good for Arkansas in some way. Just wanted to point that out to all of the people that believe in corporate welfare and the fact, well, in their minds it's a fact, that government creates jobs. Folks, that's all the time we have for today. Over at paulharrell.com, buy our Liberty Machine t-shirts. Liberty Machine t-shirts. They say building the Liberty Machine on the back. paulharrell.com with a graphic of the state of Arkansas with the gears of the Liberty Machine. And it's a pretty cool shirt. Looks really three-dimensional from a distance. Go buy them. They're $20. Shipping is free. paulharrell.com. Click on store. Folks, this episode is available at paulharrell.com in video, audio form, podcasts, everything you want. For our Mountain Talk 97 listeners, Mountain Talk 97, you guys have one more hour of the PHP coming your way next. For the rest of the state, Arkansas, we'll see you tomorrow. Be safe.